You can't fix people. End of video. We're doing Irish whiskey today. But I have a pet theory that I'm going to let you in on. And it is just a pet theory. It's not science or anything. It's just my version of how the world works. If you have a really powerful strength, magical level, like, wow, remarkable, world-changing, nothing like it, then you almost always have, and I would argue always, but always leave a little room, you also have an equally powerful weakness that causes harm and damage and problems for people around you. This is the Superman theory. Your source of your strength is the source of your weakness. Your home planet and the sun gives you your strength, but pieces of kryptonite take away your powers, and they're harmful. When you find somebody who is really, really powerful at just doing what they think and believe, damn the odds, I don't care what other people think of me, this is who I am, that superpower, which it is, does not stop with the people they like. And so when they're doing something not great, they also don't care what you think. and have to learn, right? But notice that that source is the same. So when you find somebody who has a magical, really amazing strength, you're almost always going to find that their weaknesses come from the same source. And if you try to fix them with their weaknesses, you will almost always find that you break their strengths. You should tread very, very carefully if you are in a relationship with somebody and you want to try to fix their weaknesses. Now, should everyone, this is interesting, should everyone be in the business of improving themselves as human beings? Yes, absolutely. But change can only come from inside motivation, not from outside influence. You might have a moment of realization and a moment of wisdom of like, oh, someone said something to me and it's true and it resonated. But the key part of that sentence is it resonated. It affected something in me that motivated me to see it through a new light or want to change, or want to do something differently. But change imposed from the outside is always temporary and rarely truly effective. And say you actually do it. Say you fix someone's flaw and they stop doing it, not because of their own internal motivations, but because you have finally accomplished fixing them. I guarantee you, you've broken what made them amazing. You just have. You'll see this in relationship when someone gets married and they're attracted to all these magical things about this person. And then there's all the downsides to those things. And in relationship, you start altering those things. And pretty soon you've killed everything you loved about what drew you to this person in the first place. I see it happen over and over. And the same thing goes with friendships and business relationships. You get somebody who's cutting edge and innovative and always just makes magic out of chaos at the last possible second, and then you go into business with them and they don't respond to emails and they don't show up to meetings on time and they forget projects because those are the same basic fundamental personality traits, and they're always able to wing it at the last second, but they're really, really bad at spreadsheets and they really just can't follow a list or a schedule to save their life or come up with a schedule. That's how that works. There's a really random Friends episode where they meet this guy who they used to call it, I think it was like Fun Bob or something like that. And it turns out when he shows up, he's gotten sober and now he's like really boring. And it turns out the reason he was Fun Bob is because he was drunk all the time, and that Fun Bob was a drinker. And he got his life together. And that's a really tragic version of this story, but it really is like they mourn that, like, oh, now that we've got him and he's no longer an alcoholic, or I mean, which is not a thing. Once an alcoholic, always. You just learn how to function. But now that he's sober, he's not as interesting anymore. And I would argue that was a caricature. But that's, sitcoms. But that is true. You find often that the source of those things, and this is always a fear as an artist, that you're going to improve and better yourself and you're going to sort of grow. And the powerful, heartbroken pain of life isn't going to affect you the same way. How does that affect your music and your poetry and your songwriting? Now, what happens when you are in a relationship with somebody and they have dramatic flaws that are actually hurting you? That's a different conversation, and it's called boundaries. But first, Drumshanbo. I was roaming through the whiskey store. I saw this bottle. It looked interesting, so I bought it. And then I brought it here. I was most excited that so much of Irish whiskey these days is effectively sourced whiskey with no transparency. And so you get these bottles with beautiful labels and stories, and then you go to find out who made it, and you cannot, no matter how long you search, no matter who you call, no one knows who made it. And there's NDAs and blah, blah, blah. But this is from the Shed Distillery, right in the sort of middle northern part of Ireland, not Northern Ireland, and Connacht, and it's an actual distillery making their own whiskey and doing their own thing. Now, when I started looking them up on the internet, I discovered that they have a really unique approach to a pot still, and now I wish I had tried to find that bottle because it sounded so cool. But this one is their single malt, which is 100% malted barley, and it's their special release for 2021 called Galanta, I guess? The Galanta release. And I like a lot of things about this distillery. As a marketer, I like the little soft touches on the label that say things like, from the curious mind of P.J. Rigney, which is the owner. And I just think that's such a great sentence. It reminds me of something that would have been said around, what's that show that was a book? A series of unfortunate events. It's that kind of style of like, I don't know. That sentence is so whimsical. I read it and I was like, I like that a lot. The head distiller, his name is Brian Taft. This is hand-selected by them to be a special release that went on into the market. I got this bottle at Total Wine, and this is Sherry Oloroso and Kentucky Bourbon barrels. So the nose is really cherry and vanilla cream. This is not like any other single malt that I've had recently from Ireland. There's a lot of floral, flowery kind of notes in there. And it's thinner than I would have thought. Maybe that's the 43%. I don't know how old it is, by the way. I mean, at least 3, obviously. They triple distilled this in pot stills. So triple pot stilled, which is a lot of waste. That's a heavy commitment to a whiskey. And not waste by like they're losing something, but like every time you distill something, you get less. So that's a commitment to a product to go triple pot distillation. I'm waiting for it to turn into something other than cherries and fruit and vanilla cream, but that's all I'm getting right now on the nose. Oh, interesting. It's very easy, very simple. It still is berries and cream. Even on the palate, there's a little bit of mustiness, but it's very soft and approachable, very pretty. Not a huge amount of complexity, and it feels a little bit malty. And by that I mean like the grain aspects of this spirit are still sort of holding their weight, but it's not grainy. It's mostly berries and cream. It's nice, interesting. I like trying things from Ireland now in the new craft movement of people actually making things and doing stuff. And this is an example of it. And I think it's good. I don't remember what I paid for it. So I don't know versus price point, but this is a special edition from them, so we'll see. Okay, so coming back, boundaries. So you can't fix somebody, and you should not try because you often break what makes them strong. And by the way, if you don't have a really magical superpower, you probably don't have a magical weakness in the same way around. I've found that people without any really true, like you gotta work around it weaknesses, also their highs are not that high either. And not that they're not worthless or they're bland, but they're like, no, they're just sort of steady and dependable and solid. But they're not going to change the world with their skill. They're just going to do a damn good job. And they're much easier to work with, and I would much rather hire them. Hot shots are really hard to work with. But there comes a point in relationship with people where weaknesses cross a line that you're not okay with. And at that point, while you do not have the option of fixing people, you do have the option of drawing healthy boundaries around someone, which is, hey, this thing that you do is not okay to do with me. And if you continue to do that with me, then we are going to be done. And if they can find a way to manage their weaknesses so that that line isn't crossed with you, then it can be a manageable situation. And if their approach to your effort to draw healthy boundaries is screw you, this is who I am, then that's a relationship that you end. And that feels like a heavy way to end a video, but I'm gonna. Don't try to fix people. Everyone is both strong and weak. Healthy boundaries are a real thing. Know when to draw a line. I'm really glad you're here. Cheers.